right, good afternoon to you. I'm Fox 26 meteorologist Ramisha Shade, and guess what? We made it to October. We've got about 2 more months left in our hurricane season for the Atlantic basin at least, and so far so good for H-Town. We haven't been hit by anything of a tropical nature this season, but we all know that can change in a hurry, and we're already monitoring a new potential for maybe some tropical action in the Gulf. Of course, if something moves in the Gulf, it could potentially head our way. So we don't want that, but I'll update you on what is happening. Right now, though, let's kind of get an overview of where we've been so far for this season. 9 named storms in the Atlantic, 4 of those becoming hurricanes and 3 becoming major hurricanes. So we kind of had some lulls in the action. We kind of had some active periods this season, not so active periods, but things have been kind of heating up out there. So we still haven't gotten to our average numbers for a season. That would be 14 named storms, 7 hurricanes, 3 major hurricanes, but we're getting closer. We have reached the major hurricane average number, which is 3, but named storms and hurricanes, we've still got a ways to go. Here are the 9 named storms that we've had this season, from Andrea all the way to Imelda, which is no longer a hurricane as of today. Of course, it hit Bermuda last night and this morning. A lot of wind out there and some heavy downpours, but now it is racing away from Bermuda. And of course, at its strongest, it was a Category 2 hurricane. So what is next? You see on the list, the next name is Jerry, and then we have Karen. Can you believe over the next 7 days we could have both Jerry and Karen being named as tropical systems, because we've got 2 new areas to watch. So Imelda, no longer a hurricane, but it is still a large and powerful post-tropical storm sitting out there in the middle of the Atlantic. Over water though, thank goodness. It's moved away from Bermuda and it's not really messing with anybody anymore, but it is still fairly powerful with some very strong wind. Conditions are improving though for the U.S. East Coast and Bermuda. Of course, if you watched this yesterday, you saw the craziness around the Outer Banks of North Carolina. Some of those beachfront homes just getting dragged away to sea from all of those big waves. So that was super scary to watch, but things should start improving with those waves. But we have 2 new areas to watch now in the Atlantic basin. One in the eastern Atlantic, which is far, far away from us, but the other is a little more concerning because it could develop right around South Florida. So let's quickly check out the Carolinas. This is Morehead City, North Carolina. Things looking a lot better here than they have been for the last few days. We had those massive waves lashing the coast. Still some choppy water out there, but nothing compared to what we were viewing yesterday. So that is certainly some good news. So as Imelda moves away, conditions are improving for the U.S. East Coast. All right, our satellite showing that Imelda, which is post-tropical, not looking quite as put together as it did yesterday and the day before, not quite as impressive. It's racing away from Bermuda, already lost tropical characteristics, and as we go through the next several days, it is going to move into that colder water in the North Atlantic and a weekend. But here is the last advisory that was put out for this late morning around 10 a.m. and it still had hurricane force winds at 75 miles per hour. But the good thing about this system is that it is moving away from the U.S., it's moving away from Bermuda, so it is no longer going to be an issue. So therefore, I want to kind of switch gears and talk about what could be an issue in the Gulf. We do have a possible tropical system developing here next week. Now, this is our forecast rain, and I want you to see that there's some very heavy rain being forecast for the north central Gulf. Let's look over towards Florida all the way to Louisiana, and you can see that we do have some very heavy rain coming down, and we're monitoring a little area of disturbed weather. We actually have an old frontal boundary kind of draped across the southeastern U.S. near Florida, and that is the type of setup where you could see a weak tropical system develop, especially this time of the year. So we're monitoring that closely. Right now, we've got the downpours across the Florida area, extending all the way over to New Orleans, not quite reaching us yet. We could actually use a little rain here in Houston, but we're really monitoring the area close to Miami, South Florida. So this is where we currently already have a risk for some flooding. You can see an elevated risk there north of West Palm Beach, 2 out of 4 risk for that street flooding or flash flooding. And it's due to the fact that we have the potential for a tropical system here. So we're already getting those disorganized showers and storms that could eventually develop into a weak area of low pressure. Bottom line, whatever happens, it is going to track to the northwest, likely roll into the Gulf as we go into next week. And there's going to be a big blob of heavy rain likely in the middle of the Gulf early next week. So right now, just a very low 10% shot that this is going to develop over the next few days. And it's probably going to stay pretty weak, but it is going to bump up the chance for rain here. It's going to bring some of that moisture over to parts of the Texas Gulf Coast. So this is Saturday at 2 p.m. Notice the heavy band of rain in the north central Gulf. That likely rolls into parts of southern Louisiana. Florida's still getting a lot of heavy rain, but it looks like early next week, the majority of that heavy rain sitting right over southeastern Louisiana in New Orleans. So I do think we're going to get some action, likely some better rain chances early next week, but I don't think a hurricane or tropical storm will come here. It likely would push closer to the Louisiana area. All right, here is the final area that we're watching in the eastern Gulf. Another tropical wave coming off the west coast of Africa. Low chance for development for that one over the next week. So we've got two systems that could end up being maybe tropical storm Jerry or tropical storm Karen. Of course, if that happens, we'll let you know. We're here daily giving you these updates to keep checking back. So far, so good, though, for H-Town. Not seeing anything too concerning, but it does appear that we'll finally have a slightly better chance for a little rain, maybe a few tropical downpours early next week. All right, we'll have much more for you coming up after the break for Texas Live and Local.